Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We'll get started in just a minute once we get everybody in from the waiting room. All right, Laura, it looks like our attendees are coming in and they're starting to slow down. So if you just want to go ahead and start, I know that we'll get some people and they'll catch up before we even get to the first slide.
Okay, terrific. So good morning for all of those, for all of you that are in the West, and good afternoon to any Midwesterners or East Coasters that we have joining today. We'll go ahead and get started with the intro as some of the other folks start to join in. So my name is Laura Hills. I'm analyst with NPD for the specialty outdoor and snow industries. I'm also the director of client development for NPD's sports and outdoor division. I work directly with SIA and several industry leaders in the snow market to help them uncover and capitalize on the pertinent trends that are impacting our industry today. So the webinar I have for you today is the first in a series of 4, and each with the purpose of being an educational extension of the industry trend webinars like the one that we did with you last week. And it's also intended as a walkthrough of the NPD data on your specific categories to outline it in more detail, where this data comes from, how to read it, and then most importantly, what decisions you should not be making without, taking these numbers into account when it comes to, your business decisions. NPD and SIA have partnered for this series, knowing that, now is an especially critical time in retail, and businesses need every tool, at hand to stay relevant to the fast changing market. Some of the data showcased today is available to SIA members as an ongoing monthly benefit to your membership. This is an incredible value, and today's webinar should remove any apprehensions, uncertainties, or other barriers that you may have to leveraging it. And if it doesn't, please certainly reach out to me and let me know. So for today's agenda, I'm going to tell you a little bit about NPD and where today's data comes from. I'll make the case for why it's so imperative to pay attention to the data and the various aspects of your business where you can be applying it. I'll also take you through the most relevant data presented on today's category and suggestions for ways to leverage it. And then I'll highlight for you other data sources that you have through SIA and touch on how you might leverage them together for even greater collective impact. And then lastly, I'll show you what your reports that you have access to on a monthly basis look like. And then I'll save ample time at the end for any questions that you might have, either of the data, of the trends that I show you today, if you want to explore any of those further, and then anything else that might be valuable in helping you harness the data in your business. So we're going to use the Q&A feature as opposed to the chat function. So if you do have any questions as we go along, please plug those into the Q&A. If I can, I'll answer them in real time, but for time's sake, I may just wait and answer everything in the Q&A section at the end. But if it's a really simple, pertinent question to the slide that we're on or what we're talking about, then I'll try to bring them in real time. So a little bit about NPD. If you haven't joined our industry trends webinars, throughout the past seasons, then you may not know exactly who we are. So NPD is truly a global organization. We operate in 19 countries where our data, whether it's consumer or point of sale based, it's considered the data of record for the industries that we track. We've been in business for over 50 years, and we work with the world's leading brands and retailers. And because our heads aren't just in one industry or one space, we're able to bring, the granular analysis of the key categories that I'm going to show you today, as well as, we're able to look up and look across industries and speak to what the macro trends are, from the total US retail perspective. If you go to NPD's website, you'll recognize that there's a wealth of, public press releases and studies. So even if you're not a participating retailer client, you can glean a tremendous amount of insight on, the performance and occurrences in the wider retail market from us. And then specifically in the sports business at NPD, so the practice that I operate within, in addition to covering everything from the court to the running track, we track snow business from the bottom to the top of the mountain. We give you the full perspective of what's happening in the snow industry. And as I mentioned, today's webinar is going to focus on Alpine equipment business and case studies using data examples from the most recent analysis that we have of the Alpine category. The subsequent webinars will focus on different categories. Tomorrow we have Alpine touring and equipment, Nordic equipment. And then next week we switch to snowboard and to soft goods and accessories. So the framework of these presentations will remain very similar, but the data examples will change by category. So why data? Why do we need it? Why do we say it's critical, and what makes it so? So first and foremost, it's the unbiased input to your decision making. Certainly you make countless decisions in your life and in your business based on your gut and your intuition. But data offers you the facts to justify those feelings, analytics to add weight to your anecdotes. Use data to validate those gut feelings, bring clarity, and ensure judgment is unclouded by outside factors. And then secondly, data is the great equalizer. It levels the playing field and offers smaller companies in particular an opportunity for a competitive advantage against the larger companies in the industry. And also a data-led industry, rises all ships. One point I hear all the time from buyers and from commercial teams is that data, and NPD data in particular, offers one language at the buying table. One language and one version of the truth that creates a foundation for a productive buying, selling conversation, and a trust building relationship. So what I hear more and more from our specialty centric snow business is that retailers not only appreciate the educated sales rep, but they've come to appreciate and even expect those sales reps to come equipped with data backed recommendations, for the direction of the partnership or for the business. So this data driven approach really does build trust with your business partners as well as within your organization for your decisions. So I don't think anyone would argue that COVID has certainly fast forwarded the retail timeline for change. And in today's, fast changing retail landscape, it's forcing both manufacturers and retailers to innovate and to become even more savvy. At NPD, our participating list of retailers, has grown to include businesses that were once very private and not interested in sharing their data, as well as more vertically aligned retailers that didn't have a real strong play in wholesale retail. But those retailers are all beginning to recognize the critical need to understand what's happening at retail and what it means for their own businesses. So none of us are operating in a vacuum, nor can we afford to make one-dimensional decisions using only our in-house data and just our gut decision-making. So while you are still the expert on your business, you really must take into account what's happening in the market around you and balance those facts with feelings, those feelings with facts, for better business decisions on really the most critical aspects of your business. The most sophisticated businesses that we have in retail today are sharing the most minute details of their operations with NPD because it enables their manufacturer partners to be just that, better partners in business. The largest retailers offer, manufacturers the opportunity to holistically analyze categories across all brands and items within the retailer, not just their own brand. So a lot of manufacturers are familiar with seeing their brand business within their retail partner doors. And we can even take it a step beyond that in certain industries to show what's happening across all brands and items, because it really does help the manufacturer be a better business partner. So with that, great access comes great responsibility. Those retailers know that by inviting their best partners to the table in this way, that they see greater success on both sides. Excuse me. So let's start in with the review. And specifically looking at Alpine equipment is our focus today. So the very first and most macro analysis is total market sizing and trend. So what ultimately is the size of the prize, and is that prize growing or shrinking? In this instance, where does Alpine equipment sit within the greater hard goods market? And how is it performing? What influence does it have on the total market performance, and how has it performed this season? So what we see is that the total equipment business in snow is $2 billion, and it ended the season flat to last year. We also see that Alpine equipment in particular is $643 million market that had a flat performance to the last year. And when you divide the category volume into total equipment, you know that it accounted for a little bit more than a third of the total hard goods sales. And then you can see its performance, in regard to the other largest segments. So winter snow accessories, that was down 7%. Snowboard equipment was up 4%, and Alpine touring was up double digits, 15%. So the next step down from sizing and tracking total industry or total category sell-through is to analyze the size and performance of the individual channels of distribution within the industry. So how does channel strategy align with the performance and direction of the industry? Is your channel strategy aligned with that? Are you applying the appropriate resources to your key partnerships in the key markets where the growth is taking place? So here's how NPD segments the channels of business within the snow sports industry. We have Snow Chain there on the left. This is the full participating set of retailers, as well as the gray column to the right of it. That represents the retailers that we're projecting for. In the middle, that's the snow specialty dealers, so the largest channel of business within snow industry. And this is just an example list of retailers as opposed to an exhaustive participating one like we have on the left. And then on the right, this is the example set of retailers that feed the snow internet channel. So when we roll these up together, this is what we say is the total snow industry business in the US. And then when we break them apart, we can see them individually and see what those performances for the individual channel do to contribute to the whole. So not only is it important to monitor the channel size and performance at the total channel level, but of course, you also want to understand what your specific category performance is within those channels, whether it aligns or misaligns with the total channel direction, and then also what challenges or opportunities it might represent. So here I've charted exactly that, total channel performance alongside total equipment, and then within that, the Alpine equipment performance of that channel. So descending by channel size, we first have snow specialty channel business at 2.9 billion. So across all categories, then total equipment within that's 1.6 billion. And then Alpine equipment specifically within snow specialty is a $537 million market. That market grew 4% 2 seasons ago, and then fell 1% this past season. So that's what the labels are that we have on each of the bar charts. We have 2% changes listed. First, the 18-19 season from the year prior, and then the last number is the 19-20 season versus the year prior. So snow specialty overall fell 5% this season, while total equipment grew 1%. And then Alpine equipment within that was slightly challenged. It lost 1% in dollars sold. So the category performance here is pretty much in line with both the total equipment in the channel and then the channel overall. But if we jump down to Snow Internet, we see a little bit different story. The channel fell 4% for the total season, and the total equipment fell -3% within it. But Alpine equipment, which underperformed against the channel last year, actually outperformed the channel this season. So this path, this type of analysis would naturally lead to the question and analysis of the Alpine subclasses performance within each channel, and also the comparison of those performances to your own brand. To understand if you're either outperforming or underperforming the market, and then where you might need to shift some of those resources to either rectify any underperformance or capitalize where your opportunities are. So I'll dive deeper into the lower level subclass trends in a couple subsequent slides. I did see somebody raise their hand, so if you want to plug a question into the Q&A, I should see it pop up and be able to respond. So first, before going into the subclasses, let's go a little bit further with the channel distribution analysis, because as I mentioned earlier in today's market, it's especially important not to take your eye off the ball because those changes are happening so rapidly. It's important to point out the trend reversal that we saw in Snow Internet that took place in March. So of course, the redirection of sales from brick and mortar to e-commerce occurred across U.S. retail industries. And for most of those industries, e-commerce is still a fast-growing segment. So, and was a fast-growing segment going into COVID and to the pandemic and to those store closures that drove the growth even higher. But that wasn't true of snow, and particularly of snow hard goods, where the specialty e-commerce growth had kind of stagnated this past year. And we see those factors in the total season performance. Sorry about that. I had a chat pop up. So yeah, that wasn't true of snow. But what we saw in March was that the Snow Internet channel, winter Snowsports equipment grew 13% in dollars sold, up 16% in units sold, and recognized about a 3% decline in average selling price across all categories. So most major categories saw double-digit growth in both dollars and units sold, with units trending just slightly faster than dollars, and we're seeing that decline in the average selling price. So specifically for Alpine equipment, the one on the top row there, we saw a growth of 20% in dollars, a growth of 38% in units, and then ASP fell 13%. So that's fairly in line with the rest of the winter equipment categories that we saw. Now, NPD doesn't track snow sales in the summer months, beginning in April and going through July. So while we know, from our foothold in the rest of the U.S. retail industries, that the growth of online sales did continue, and it also continued beyond when store closures ended and stores began to open up again for business. So it'll be really interesting to track this as we start the 2021 season that began with tracking with August and September, and we'll deliver that data in November. Okay, so looking deeper into the subclasses and seeing what opportunities we have there outlined here, I've had what I'll call an assortment opportunity example using Alpine bindings. So we see that while all subclasses grew 2 seasons ago, it was actually only Alpine bindings that carried that growth from the 18-19 season into the full season for the 19-20. Alpine skis and Alpine boots, they garner a significant amount of the volume for the Alpine equipment category, but really the growth that's happening is taking place within Alpine bindings and not within skis, boots, or poles. So from an assortment perspective, if I'm a buyer with open to buy in Alpine equipment, I'm interested to know what's driving the growth in Alpine bindings. I'm still going to keep, most of my eggs in the basket of skis and boots, but I want to capture, my fair share of the growth that's occurring in those bindings too. So before I put my buyer hat on and explore the brand or item drivers that are taking place in Alpine bindings, I want to first confirm the trends remain the same, and then also or accelerated, within Snow Internet in the month of March. So if we look at that, sure enough, we see that Alpine skis, Alpine boots, Alpine bindings all continued or all grew within the month of March within Snow Internet. But the trend that we're seeing that Alpine bindings was outperforming the rest of the subclasses, this remained true within the month of March, and particularly within Snow Internet. So Alpine skis grew 20%, Alpine boots grew 9%, but Alpine bindings grew 54%. Again, we have a little bit, of the law of large numbers. So the categories of Alpine skis and boots being a little bit larger, their percent growth wouldn't be quite as high. But certainly we're seeing a more accelerated trend within Alpine bindings that continued true within the internet channel, even when, brick and mortar stores were shut down. So sometimes to continue the analysis of a trend, you're going to want to access brand and item level reporting. If you're not a participating retailer within NPD's panel, or your brand is not already purchasing full brand and item level reporting, reach out to me. I'll be sure to put you in contact with the right person, to move that conversation forward, whether it's, at NPD or with SIA. In this example, I'll put my buyer hat on, and I'm seeing that while, within Alpine bindings, the brand is ranked there on the left. It's ranked by the middle column of dollar share. And then I've also charted on the right the share of the dollar growth from the last 2 seasons. So what's been contributing to that growth over the last 2 seasons, and who's contributed the most. Because if you saw from the previous slide, I did track each of those subclasses over 2 seasons, and they were all growing. And then Alpine bindings was just the one that continued that growth into this past season. So what we see is that Marker, Solomon, and Look all account for about 20% or more, or at least 20% of the Alpine bindings volume sold in the last 2 seasons. However, Tyrolia, who is just 12% of the Alpine bindings market, has actually accounted for 34% of the market growth. So, share of dollar growth for the last 2 seasons is certainly significantly higher. They're over-indexing in what they're contributing in growth to the category versus what they hold in dollar share of volume. So I know now I need to have the Tyrolia bindings in my assortment, and because the data is available down to the model level, I also know that I need to allocate my spend by DIN setting as follows. So about 45% of it should go to the AAA Attack 11, about 15% should go to the 12, and then 40% to the 13, based on the share of growth from those bindings, from those different settings in the sell-through data. So another layer of analysis that's important for both manufacturers and national retailers to review is the industry performance by region. So certainly your internal numbers, but then it's also important to understand what happened in the market for sell-through. So what you did in your own stores. If you're a manufacturer, how you did online, and how weather may have contributed to that. And then you also know your sell-in, right? But the weather certainly will impact what that sell-through looks like, and it will certainly adjust, by region based on that. So what NPD offers in the SIA reports is the ability to break the snow specialty channel in particular by region. So by the 4 US Census regions, we track the West standalone from Midwest, from South, and from Northeast. So you can see in volume what each of those regions contributes to the snow specialty channel. And you can see how that volume has changed over a 3-year trend. The West is, significantly higher in terms of what it contributes. And the performance of the West has, the West has outperformed the other regions this past season as well. So NPD's capabilities in this realm get significantly more sophisticated in other industries and services outside of snow. And that's because all major retailers report to us on both a weekly and a store level basis. Therefore, we're able to take this type of regional view and drill it down to like a defined metropolitan area is as specific as we can get. And that can become really extremely powerful for marketing teams and business groups that are really looking to understand the impact or maybe the ROI of some of the work that you're doing in the market and specific areas or specific metro cities. As more and more snow retailers within our panel begin to report by this cadence and granularity, this could be a capability that we see as a reality of the snow industry reporting, as we move into the future as well. So while we saw a few slides ago that Alpine Ski's performance was lackluster for the season, a little further analysis uncovers really a bifurcation between what's happening in flat skis and what's happening in system ski trends. And this provides both retailers and manufacturers with, planning guidance, assortment guidance. The growth of flat skis is all but offsetting the decline that we're seeing in system skis for the past season, which, was an acceleration of the same trend that we saw the season prior. So in 18-19, flat skis were up 5% and system skis were down just 1%. So that was just really the start of the trend that we're starting to see. And then this past year, flat skis were up 6% and system skis were down a whopping 15%. So the trend that began in the 18-19 season certainly accelerated into this past season. This is something that you would certainly want to respond to and how you're either going to market or how you're assorting your store. And then another planning and an assortment example using the ski waist width analysis. So the more detailed analysis you can make of a category, certainly the more precise a picture you're able to paint of the market for your product development teams, your demand planners, and then certainly your retail buyers and your your merchandisers. Is your business aligned with the market trends or are you missing the mark? In the example of skis, we can look at the market by waist width performance and see that the 91 to 100 millimeter waist width has really become the most popular size by share of dollars. It's also added six full share points over the past 2 seasons. The 101 to 110 waist widths are also trending faster than the rest of the waist widths, although the volume still remains pretty small. So the 80 to 90 millimeter waist width still garners a fair share of your business and accounts for the second largest width. But the small amount of growth that it saw this season really doesn't offset the big losses that we saw from it last season. So looking at multiple year trends like this is especially important for weather dependent categories like hard goods. To see, where the market is going and where the preference lies with consumers. But also another analysis that you could do a layer down from this that would be, really relevant. It would be to apply the regional filter. This can be especially important for manufacturers and national retailers because, waist width trends that are taking place in the West, which we saw from a few slides ago, the West certainly influences the total US trends when we look at everything rolled up together. But that may not be true. These trends may not be hold true if you look specifically at the West or specifically at the Northeast standalone. And so you would really want to address your market specifically to what those trends are. And so that's why the regional filter layered on top of some of these attributes and some of these categories can really be powerful to analyze. And then top selling items is an obvious way to identify market drivers and to assure that your assortment is capturing the most popular selling items in the category if you're a retailer, and that, if you're a manufacturer, either where your top sellers fall or also, maybe where your competitive action is happening and what you need to go after in the market. So if you rank the models by dollars sold in the season, you're going to get your top seller list. However, another important way to analyze the business at the item level and to uncover opportunities in the category is to then take and rank those items by absolute dollars sold. So you're subtracting this year's sales from last year's sales. And this allows you to see what new models are, making the biggest splash in the market as they enter it, even though, they really haven't gotten up, enough sales velocity to become a top seller. They're still really pertinent to the market and important to understand and to know where you want to put some of those dollars in subsequent seasons. You can see that in the chart here, I've ranked items by dollars sold on the left. So, the Black Pearl has been the #1 selling ski for some time now. But then looking also at items ranked by absolute dollars sold on the right, you can see that some of the new products into the market have done very, very well. So K2's Mindbender series, really great growth and entrance into the market with that. But then also Atomic Spent Chetler, that was actually not, they were actually not new to the market this past season, but the growth was so significant in terms of dollars sold that they ended up #4 in this ranking. And then certainly another option is to simply rank items by dollars % change. This is going to highlight for you the items that have fairly low volume in the market, but a large % change for the season, suggesting that they are fast moving in the market and something to pay attention to. This requires a little bit of additional filtering though. So you want to set the parameters for maybe a minimum dollars sold for the season so that you carve out those items that have high % changes, but still very, very minimal dollars in the market. And then lastly, I want to talk about average selling price and some price segmentation analysis examples. So simply tracking categories, average selling price or ASP season over season or month by month can be incredibly useful in identifying when the most discounting is occurring in the category, whether the category, excuse me, is shifting towards value or towards premium product. That analysis can be done by just looking at average selling price by specific time periods for your category. But then you can go a little bit deeper into it. You can get a little bit more sophisticated and segment units sold within defined price ranges. And this allows you to understand the price point sweet spots of your category. So in this example, I've taken the Alpine boots performance through February of last season. So this is pre-COVID, pre-store closures. And at the time, I knew that the category was showing a 3% growth in dollars, but that unit sales were flat and a slight increase in average selling price. So to understand what was driving the dollars and the ASP increases, I segmented the unit sales by $100 increments and found that while the under $200 and $300 to $400 ranges drove the most units, there was only a slight increase in units under 200, and each of the segments over 500 had experienced double-digit increases over last season. So I knew that that's where the action was happening in the category. And then taking this a little bit further, so driving this analysis deeper into the brand level, I found that, in the under $200 segment, where there was a slight uptick in units sold, this was being driven by Nordica and Dalbella. And then there wasn't much happening in 200 to 300, 300 to 400, or 400 to 500 in terms of units growth. So then I start looking at the ranges above 500. And really Solomon, when I look at, what brand was contributing to the most to the growth in those price segments, it was far and away the brand driver for those growth and those gains that we saw in these segments. So now I've walked you through several examples of ways that you can take and leverage the NPD retail sell-through data at the macro industry and channel levels, as well as down to the brand and item level if you have access to that as well. And then also average selling price and some price segmentation analysis examples too. So what can NPD data what can make NPD data even more powerful and actionable for your business is when those insights are taken and compared and combined with other data sources. So as members of SIA, you have access to consumer research, custom consumer research, participation studies, as well as sell-in data, at the wholesale sales and order study. And then when you take that and you marry it with the sell-through data that we have from NPD, this really gives you the most holistic view of the industry, what's happening in its trends, and then what it means for your business in particular. So that's where it gets really powerful and actionable. So if you haven't seen the monthly market reports before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them up now, and I'm going to walk you through what they include. So bear with me just a second. So the first thing I'm going to show you today is the top line reports that you'll get by category or that you have access to by category. So the first one I'm going to show you is an example for Alpine skis. And I'm going to share that screen now. So anybody just throw me a chat if you can't see it, or that if it's not up on the screen right now. Maggie, maybe tell me if I'm missing the mark or something's not showing. But what you should see here is an Excel document. It's Snowsports industry view. It's all Alpine skis report, and the report date is March 2020. So this report is available in all Alpine skis. It also comes for all poles, Alpine bindings, and Alpine boots. So this is delivered, this version of this report is delivered every month of the season, which goes from August through March. And what it has in it, the first tab you'll see is a table of contents where you can hot link to any of the tabs throughout it. So you'll see a summary of what happened across all the channels. And this is broken by flat skis, waist widths, and then system skis broken by waist width. So a lot of the detail that you need within skis is given right there. You also get a dollar analysis for all Alpine skis, as well as a unit analysis. You have an all channels top line, which again outlines all Alpine skis, a current period, a season to date, and then the percent change for both of those time periods. So for this is current period is March 2020. That's the data month that this was provided. And then season to date for a current period of March 2020 would be your full season view. So you would get everything for the full season from August to March. So in this particular file, you get, specific season and then season to date broken by, the nitty gritty of the skis that you want to see. We also offer a view just into the specialty snow specialty channel. And then you can also get the regional performance. As I said, we do region for snow specialty channel in particular. And then you can also look specifically at your snow chain channel and then your snow internet channel separately. So a lot of great detail provided in this report. Again, it's specific to Alpine skis, but the same format of report is provided for poles, for bindings, and for boots each month of the season. So that's your top line report by category. There's another report that I want to talk about, and that's your retail market report. So let me pull this one up. And then now you should see an Excel document that's titled U.S. Snow Industry Retail Market Report. So this report is also provided every month of the season. And what this offers is a really more overarching view and all-encompassing view of what the industry has to show and what's happened within it. It includes dollars sold, units sold, average price. It has sales by channel, by reporting periods, so for the month as well as for the season to date. And then you can also break it by specialty region and see what happened within each category within each region. So a ton of great information here. This report is also accompanied with a short webinar, 10 to 15 minutes. I walk through what the components of the report are, in summary. I do that fairly quickly. And then I get into the nitty gritty of the data. And I usually talk through the current period as well as the season to date. So I'm just going to expand this out. This is the season to date reporting. And you can see that the outline of it allows you to view everything within the hierarchy that's provided to you. As a SIA member, you get access to each of the super categories: accessories, apparel, and equipment. And then you can dive down into the performance of each one. So specifically for today's example being Alpine equipment, you can see that I can very quickly drill down to just Alpine equipment, and I can see what the performance is for the season to date in terms of dollar volume, percent change, dollars, units, and average selling price. And then I can drill down and see what each of those look like at the subclass level. So everything that's contributing to that total top line Alpine equipment performance. It does get a little bit more detailed. Again, if you want to look specifically at what happened within regions, you can pull that quickly here. So I'm going to expand equipment out. Snowsports, I'll leave expanded. And then here's your Alpine equipment, and here's your regional performance. Excuse me. So really quick access to the details that you need out of the category, and then the addition of those first reports that I show you get down into some of the attributes and some of the more specific aspects of the subclasses, such as skis, flat skis, system skis, that sort of thing. So between the two reports, a lot of great information that you have at hand. Let me jump back. To the report, or to the PowerPoint. And then actually, now that we're back into the PowerPoint, the next 15 minutes that we have here, 15 minutes or so, can really be opened up to questions. So anyone in the audience that is new to the data and really has some follow-up questions on anything that we showed in trends today, questions of how to get to any specific numbers that you saw today, I can outline those either from the report or give you guidance if you're a brand or retailer that has access to brand and item level data. I can help guide you through that as well. So I don't see any current questions in the Q&A. So there's nothing that's been submitted throughout our time today. So I'll just give it a couple more minutes. Maggie, I don't know if you've seen anything come through on your side.
I haven't. I know that you showed the two reports that you mentioned. Maybe you just want to point people to how to access them in case they are unclear.
Yeah, so you might be able to provide that guidance a little bit better than me. So I know it's under the Insights tab within their snow industry SIA login, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sharing, I believe, my screen. I don't know if
you are. It looks great.
Okay. So yeah, so this is where you can access it. Certainly you would need to go to your member login, but then once you get into this, the Insights tab should give you access to, everything related to NPD if you scroll down to the monthly top line retail sales reports. But again, when you're here, there's also these other pieces of data that, again, as I said, when you marry those with it, that's where you can see that's where you can see some of the most powerful actionable insights. So I do have a question here that came through that says, are snowshoes reported in snow accessories, or is that separate from this analysis? So this analysis today was specific to Alpine. So I didn't touch on anything within snowshoes, but let me see exactly where that is in the report. Okay, Maggie, can you confirm that you see the snow industry retail market report?
Yep.
Okay,
Sure do.
So within the monthly, overarching report that we have, so we don't have a standalone for snowshoes, but if you go into this report that, comes out on the monthly basis, and you, again, start with like total sales, open that up, winter snow sports equipment, and then drilling all the way down, you can find snowshoes are here. We have men's, women's, youth, and not specified, or you can collapse it and see the total roll up. So we have dollars, units, and average selling price, and the percent changes for each of those. So this is available. I have season to date by gender here, but of course, then you could also see just the standalone season to date, the current period. So whatever the month of the report being published is, and then you can also break it down to your specialty region. Let me jump back over to questions. I was toggling through a lot of things, so I may have lost the questions.
Well, Laura, I think that was all very helpful. I know I learned a lot by listening. If we don't have any other questions, we can certainly let people get back to their day, and they can either follow up directly with either me at industry&intelligence@snowsports.org, or I'm sure they can reach out to you directly if you want to share your contact information too.
Yep, absolutely. So my contact information is laura.hills@npd.com. So that's my email address if anybody wants to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to share, the deck of this. I know that we have it recorded as well. So any questions that come off today, please reach out and let me know. Tomorrow we will be doing a similar session. We'll be using examples from Alpine touring and Nordic equipment in tomorrow's session. And then again, next week, the series, it begins again on Tuesday. We'll outline examples for how to leverage the data within snowboard equipment. And then on Wednesday, we'll shift over to apparel, soft goods, headwear and handwear and accessories. So a lot of great information to come. If you have any questions, reach out and let me know.
Thanks so much, Laura. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yep. Thanks for your time today.
Okay. Bye-bye.